It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood because we get to continue our top 20 player rankings here on League Unlock for the World Championship. We're going through the top 10 now, and just remember, when you're talking about this video or any of the top 20 rankings around the interwebs over the next couple of weeks, we're all just League of Legends fans here. Everybody's going to have their different opinions. There's going to be a whole lot of different looking lists, but let's be civil. Let's be friends, guys, because we can all agree that this is the most stacked field of talent that we've ever seen at an international event, which again makes these lists near impossible to accurately or get everyone that deserves to be on the list be there. So, you know, let's just all be friends. But that being said, we're going to the top 10. These are the best of the best. You've got Koreans, Chinese, European players. No, there's no North Americans in the top 10. But maybe we'll redo this after the group stage or at the end of Worlds and someone will be in there. Probably not. Very unlikely. But the other three regions will definitely be represented. Let's get to number 10, and it is the most consistent player on the Invictus Gaming roster, and it's the guy who had the biggest question marks in 2018, JackeyLove, in the bottom lane when he was that up-and-coming star rookie. Everyone was kind of concerned. I don't know, is this guy really going to be able to deliver, live up to the hype, and play with these other world-class players on the roster? Well, obviously he did that in 2018. He still had a lot of question marks around him, but here in 2019, especially in the summer split, when there has been huge slumps for Invictus Gaming, even Baolan was subbed out for a couple of weeks, JackeyLove has been the consistent force and really the most reliable player on IG for the entirety of that summer split. He stepped it up even to another level in the regional finals. And this guy is definitely vying with Uzi for the best Kai'Sa in China, which is obviously a huge testament to his abilities because Uzi's the best AD carry of all time. But JackeyLove, I'm very excited to see him back on the international stage. And those mistakes that you constantly talked about in 2018 where you would maybe see him jump in, flash a little bit too aggressively, and get himself instantly killed in a team fight, well, that has not been nearly as much of an issue. You basically haven't seen it at all here in the summer split, and especially in that playoff run. And even when IG was struggling, I think the least of the blame for that entire roster would go on JackeyLove. And that's why he's ranked even higher than his buddy in the top lane, TheShy. He is the highest ranking IG member on this list, and the only one of them that is in the top 10, and that is a deserved one for the man in the bottom lane, who's still so early on in his career and already has an LPL title and a world championship. This guy's going into the Hall of Fame eventually, whenever there is one for the LPL or worldwide. Let's go on to number 9, and it is the highest ranking top laner that we have at the entire event. We only had 2 of them. It was TheShy first, and at number 9, it is Nuguri from Damwon Gaming. You've seen the incredible outplay potential that this guy has. If you're talking about carry top laners, I mean, it is TheShy and Nuguri are the main 2. You don't want any Karma top for this guy because sometimes 2, even 3 members being sent his way is not enough. And it very much reminds me of what we were seeing Khan do in 2018 spring to whenever any gank would come in the top lane. It seemed in impossible scenarios that he would turn around a 1v2 or 1v3 situation. Well, we've seen plenty of that from Nuguri, and I think even the growth from spring to summer, you've seen a huge change. And I'm going to give a bit of credit to Flame. I don't know how much he actually works with him behind the scenes, but I think having one of the all-time great top laners of this game on your roster and on your team, kind of helping you out and helping you deal with that mental boom, I think it's only provided an accelerated lane for him to grow through. And you know, obviously the mental came back against SKT, where he's jumping into blast plants and auto-attacking them mid-air to send him back. But I think he's only going to grow from that, and I really think that we are going to see both solo lanes, Nuguri and Showmaker, who was also on this list. We're going to see them both obviously dominate the play-in stage, but also dominate in that main group stage and maybe even help Damwon get out of groups, depending on where they land, of course. Number 8 on the list is the second of many Fun Plus Phoenix members. It is their jungler, Chen, in there, who, I mean, one of the main reasons why Doinb has looked so incredible this split is, of course, you know, Doinb is the super carry. He is got the most insane champion pool and is not afraid to be aggressive, but the jungle mid duo that Fun Plus has in Tien and him has been absolutely incredible. And I think people sleep on him a little bit just because, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of other world-class junglers at this event, as you will see as the list continues, but I think Tien is very much deserving of being right in that top 10 right here at number 8. He was great for them in the playoffs, and like all junglers these days, the early game is running through them, and they are pre-15 minutes. There's without a doubt they are the most important role on the team, and so when you're a favorite for the entire World Championship, as you'll see the theme going on here, you better have a world-class jungler, and I think Tien here has the opportunity to show that he is very much capable of playing at that level because he did it all throughout the spring and summer splits. Remember, it was Doinb and Tien that came in that really completely changed Fun Plus and made them into a world's contender like they are. It wasn't just Doinb, so put some respect on Tien's name in the jungle as well. On to number 7, where you have a former MVP, and yes, he is a bit of a coin flip whether he is the best player in the world or the worst player in the game. It is Caps from G2. He was the only Western player in 2018 that we put in the top 10. I believe we put him at number 9 last year. He goes up a couple spots to number 7. Obviously, we saw him peak at MSI where he was, you know, going toe-to-toe with Faker and some of these other world-class mid laners, and some people might even think 7 is a little bit low for him, but there is, you know, the possibility of him having one of those craps games where he just completely does not perform to the level you've seen. I think in a lot of the matchups against Fnatic, Nemesis was going even or even getting the advantage against him. Obviously, some of these comeback wins that G2 had, you said, okay, that's Claps, completely avoiding a 2v1 gank and, you know, getting a kill with it. Those are the plays that you just don't expect and most players are not capable of actually making. So yes, the incredible peaks and highs that we've seen from Caps would definitely put him in as a top 5 player coming into this event, but just because of the inconsistencies that we've seen at times throughout all of 2019, really, I think puts him in firmly in that number 7 spot. But there is no doubt that regardless of the mid laner that he's matched up against, Caps has the potential and the capabilities to go head-to-head and even come out as a winning matchup. Doesn't matter who he's going up against. Even the best of the best, Faker, Rookie, Doinb, even if Knight was showing up to this event, I think Caps has shown that he can hold his own against those other world-class players. Coming up after the break, we go to the top 6. We've got some former number 1s that were on this list, the greatest players coming into Worlds. Not number 1 this time. We're back on League Unlocked, getting down to the nitty-gritty of our top 20 player rankings. We have hit the top 6, and in at number 6 is a man who was pretty much consensus number 1 last year and is still looked to as one of the best AD carries on the world. We're talking about Uzi from RNG, highest ranking player on RNG, as he probably will be until the end of time. And you even saw in the playoffs towards the end against FPX and even the round before that against Top, it was just going back to their tried and true colors for RNG. It was the funnel comp for Uzi. Just give him all the CS. Sorry, Xiaohu. Sorry, Langjing. You're not getting anything. It's all about Uzi. We're going to put all our eggs in the Uzi carry basket. And we've talked about this before. RNG, that's just not really how the meta works right now. But apparently in the playoffs, even though RNG obviously ended up finishing second behind Fun Plus, the numbers were still there for Uzi, and almost 40% of the team's damage and almost 45% of the team's overall kills. Yeah, you best believe they were feeding a lot of the resources into him, and it has worked for them for multiple years, and it did get them the second seed to the World Championship after a spring split where they exited in the very first round. So the play style is still very much the same for RNG, but that might be a problem here because I feel like they're going to be a little bit too predictable. They're going to have to get outside of the Uzi carry if they want to make it far at this World Championship. That being said, even without tons of resources, completely pulled into him, even playing at the same level as a typical professional AD carry, Uzi is still going to be better than pretty much everyone. He is still a God-given talent, and the meta is still all champions that he's capable of playing. Doesn't matter, Sivir, Xayah, Kai'Sa, I mean, he's still absolutely nutty on all three of those champions. Ezreal, it doesn't matter. Any marksman, he's going to be able to pick up pretty much instantly. We've seen him destroy Caitlyn in past years. So Uzi is still going to be absolutely terrifying to go up against, and he will be the measuring stick for opposing bottom lanes. How well do you match up against Uzi and Ming in that bottom lane? Because in 2018, it didn't go well for most teams laning opposite of him, unless you have to force a Heimerdinger ban or you're putting wards on a Lantern. Those were his kryptonite in 2018. We'll see if they show up again here in 2019. But Uzi is not the highest ranking AD carry on our list, and that is something that we haven't said in a couple of years. And well, the man who went head-to-head with him in a couple of series, LWX, on Fun Plus, he was the runner-up for MVP in the summer split, right behind Knight, and deservedly so. I know DoinB was the main guy for Fun Plus, but LWX had some incredible individual performances throughout the entire summer split and even in the playoffs and in a lot of these head-to-head matchups against RNG and against the man we were just talking about, Uzi. LWX had his best games of the year, and he absolutely outclassed Uzi in a lot of those rounds, and I think he is, because of how big a carry performance he put on for Fun Plus in a lot of these games, he doesn't quite get the recognition for how well he played because obviously DoinB is going to steal a lot of the headlines for Fun Plus, and even, you know, Tian still got some recognition as well. But LWX was incredibly consistent the entire split, and I think in the summer split, you saw his play really reach an entirely new level. And if you took off the nameplates in a lot of these games, you might be thinking this is Uzi. He's got a very similar play style. He's very aggressive. And when there is that split-second opportunity to dash or flash in aggressively and completely change the tides of a team fight, time and time again, LWX absolutely did that. And I mean, some of these games, it's rare that you talk about an AD carry performance in a game and you can watch the highlights, you can watch the VOD a couple of times over and say, I think he played that game pretty much perfectly. There was almost no mistake. His CS numbers are disgusting. He didn't die a single time, and any of the team fights that he won, he completely, the positioning that he made, completely changed it over. And there were several games where you could say that for LWX. So he had an absolutely incredible summer split, and I think he deserves the recognition of being top 5 and the highest AD carry on our ranking coming into Worlds 2019. Number 4 is somebody that you have probably heard of. It's his lowest ranking ever for a top 20 World Championship. It is the greatest player of all time. He is not the highest ranking mid laner on the list, which again is probably a first for him because he wasn't there in 2018. But it's Faker, obviously, from SKT, and what a tumultuous summer split and really 2019 overall for SKT. Yes, in the regular season, there's no doubt that Faker was probably not even a top 3 mid laner in the LCK when you had Showmaker, Chovy. They were both playing incredibly well, and I think it was pretty much consensus that they played better than him in the regular season. But when you are taking into account what he did through that entire playoff run for SKT, they played 13 games. He played 8 different champions. That's when he's bringing out the Echo, the Kassadin, all these staple picks that we've seen in years past for Faker. And all of a sudden, when he's not playing some Karma in the mid lane, you realize, oh, right, that's why this guy's the best player of all time. So when you're talking about the playoff run that he did, and of course, you can't deny whatever people want to say whenever you're doing a list like this and it is at a world championship, just because it's Faker. He's coming back to Worlds. You know he's countlessly proven himself on this international stage. That's absolutely something, either knowingly or not, that you have to take into account when you're going to such a huge international competition. And I think Faker, I mean, that's not even a question mark with him as to whether or not he will perform. Even when SKT looked not that strong in 2017, he was putting on some incredible performances and still guided them to that World Championship final. And that combined with him rolling through the playoffs, there were still moments, some unquestionable, uncharacteristic plays that he made where he was getting caught out unnecessarily. But for the most part, he got his revenge against Showmaker and Chovy, absolutely winning those matchups here throughout the summer playoff run. And Faker, he's not in the top 3, but a still well-deserved spot at number 4, and he will still be a terror in the mid lane and who most opposing mid laners will be most excited to match up opposite. Coming up after the break, it's into the top 3. We've got some current and former MVPs that will be making up the best of the best. It is the home stretch, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to League Unlock. We have reached the top 3 for our Worlds 2019 top 20 player rankings, and we've talked about how important jungling is in this current meta and how the entire early game is shaped by how well your jungler is performing and how well he helps out his laners. And that's why 2 of the 3 on this top 3 will be junglers. And we've got to start with the highest ranking Western player probably ever, definitely ever on these lists, the MVP from the best team in Europe and arguably the best team in the world. It is Jankos, who finally, I mean, for several years it was talked about him being a choker on his H2K days internationally, even though he already made a top 4 at Worlds with H2K. But this playoff run really cemented him as probably the best Western jungler of all time, at least definitely in the last 5 years or so. And he was absolutely incredible against Fnatic, especially going head-to-head against Broxah, and pretty much any game G2 was winning, it was because Jankos was getting an early advantage in that jungle matchup. It's amazing what this guy can do when he's not playing Braum. We've seen both sides of the coin here for him, whether it's playing tank junglers or playing some of these more aggressive junglers like a Sylas or a Qiyana, where he can actually carry these games, even on the Olaf, where he can completely decimate opposing lineups. And the Sejuani is obviously going to be a staple pick that pretty much any jungler will have to be able to play alongside that Gragas. His champion pool is vast, and I mean, you even go back to spring when he was playing Karthus and half the games whenever he could, because that's a fun champion. He gets to steal kills. But for a veteran who's been around for 5+ years now, we're going back to 2014 when he was playing on Roccat. It is just great to see him reaching his peak performance 5 years after he's been playing professionally. There was no question and no issues with him winning that MVP award. He was without a doubt the best player on G2, the most important player at the very least, and the best jungler in EU. We saw him show up at MSI going against some of the best junglers on the planet. So very deserving of the highest ranking spot ever for a Western player here at number 3. And the problem is, and the reason he's not the highest ranked jungler on the list, is because the man at number 2 has something to say about that. We are talking about Clid for SKT, and for all the importance that Jankos has in the early game and the overall playstyle of G2, times that by about 10 for what Clid is for SKT. Even more than any other team in the world right now, everything is fueled through Clid for SK Telecom. And again, the 13-game run that they went on in the playoffs, where they were just looking so dominant in pretty much, except for 2 games, one they lost to Afreeca and one that they lost to Griffin. They were just completely murdering the competition, and the early game, almost every time in the post-game analysis and anything, all the threads. It was what an immaculate early game from Klid. It didn't matter who he was going up against, whether it was Canyon, whether it was Tarzan. He just put on an absolute clinic, and this is exactly what we were kind of talking about at MSI with maybe SKT relies a little bit too much on Klid, but he was the MVP for group stage at that event. So we talk about players not necessarily having tons of international experience and that putting a little bit of a hamper on the ranking on this list. And while Klid really only has that one MSI tournament to his name, just the sheer dominance that he's played throughout 2019, and you can count the spring split in this one as well, and you take into account that he actually played insanely well at that one international event at MSI, even though SKT did not win overall, and you have to put this guy at the very minimum within your top three. We have him here at number 2, obviously, and I think he's more than earned that ranking. Yeah, he's the highest ranking jungler, highest ranking member from SKT, and you never put anyone from SKT ahead of Faker, but absolutely Klid deserves it this year. He has been the best performing, and he is the most important member of one of the overall favorites for the entire tournament. So yeah, he best be hanging out there in that number 2 spot. Unfortunately, it's not enough for him to be number 1 on our list. Of course, it is the former MVP of the LPL, Super Carry Douinb. We finally get to see him at a World Championship, which means you have to redo the list of best players to never attend a World Championship. And for Douinb, it's not necessarily the numbers that are going to completely jump off the page at you and say, oh my God, this guy is kill share, damage numbers. No, that's not going to be the case. He's basically a G2 roster in himself. The flexibility that he brings to this Fun Plus lineup. I mean, the sheer depth of this guy's champion pool is absolutely insane. They only played 8 games in the playoffs. He played 6 different champions. He just played Ryze and Qiyana twice. I mean, this guy has played Rumble mid. He's playing Pantheon mid. He was playing Renekton mid before pretty much anyone else was. The fact that he'll play he just has a play style like nobody else. Even when he's playing some of these carry champions, you'll see him build 55 times more tanky, a tankier build than anyone else will build on those characters. And it's just a completely fresh and innovative play style. And we know how incredibly important he is to this Fun Plus lineup. And there have been countless games where he has completely carried Fun Plus to a victory. Yes, we talked about LWX and Tien having absolutely incredible splits for them. And Fun Plus alone, 3 guys in the top 10 on these rankings. And that only speaks to how dominant they were, not only in the summer split, but you forget that they completely blitzed the regular season of the spring split as well. And if it wasn't for one bad best-of-5 series against JD Gaming, I think you'd have even more confidence going forward in this FPX lineup. But there's no question Douinb, I think he's the best mid laner coming into this tournament. If you had Knight coming from TES, maybe you even have him in conversation as that number 1. But Douinb, just because of the flexibility, the absolute perfect understanding that he has of the meta right now, and he's just so unique to other mid laners, but he has been at absolute peak performance for the entirety of the summer split. He's finally going to Worlds, and he's number 1 on our list. That's it today for League Unlocked. Thank you guys for checking out our rankings. We'll see you next time.